All right, peace be upon you, ladies and gentlemen. How are you? Now, in today's video, I want to speak about what I believe was the first sin that God identifies in the Quran. The first sin of Adam and, sorry, not the first sin of Adam, the first sin of Iblis, and then Adam followed afterwards, except Adam was better because he repented to his Lord and he changed his ways. But I want to talk about this first sin and how I see it everywhere. This is like the biggest pitfall and Achilles heel of most of mankind, and that is victimhood. Victimhood, ego, and virtue signaling. And ego and victimhood, they go hand in hand. So we have this idea in the Quran, or the story of Iblis and God, and this whole topic of victimhood, this relates into my conception of God. I believe he's a physical, concrete being who is above the flat earth, who does what he wills. He's a personal being and we are subject to him, and he makes the rules and we follow them. There's no universal principles, Platonic ideals outside of God. God is God. He defines what is right and wrong, and he does that as he wills, and he can do whatever he wants. His might makes him right. Might is right. There is no victimhood in the Quranic theology. And you see over and over in the Quran, God appeals to his power, Basically, the evildoers, the disbelievers, let them extend a rope and stretch out their means to heaven and see if they can stop that whereat they rage. Basically, God is saying, let them come. If they have a problem with me and me sending these messengers and what I'm doing, why don't they bring a rope to heaven and stop me from doing this? They can't do it. All right, well, they're going to have to follow me. So do you feel secure that he who is in heaven would not cause the earth to swallow you the while it shakes and quakes? God is constantly appealing to his power. And the Quranic model of justice is not universal principles that God has to follow or whatever. No, the Quranic model of justice is God is the sovereign. He decides what is right and wrong, and you can follow it and God will bless you, or you can go against it and God will utterly destroy you, and that's it. And there's no way you can challenge him. The Quranic model is might is right. And it's, again, when I say might is right, I'm not talking about some universal Platonic principle up here that might is right. No. Might is right is just a natural description of reality. God is the ultimate almighty being. Nobody can stop him. He is immortal and he does what he wants because nobody can stop him. It's that simple. That might is right is just a description of natural reality. But anyways, as I was saying, the reason might is right is related to this topic of victimhood, which I'm going to get into, is because once you accept this might is right theology, then all that victimhood mentality, which is so prevalent in mankind, it starts to dissolve very, very quickly. There's no victims. And you see this everywhere with the atheists, the kafir, the secularists. They'll say these things like, if God is an all-loving being. God is not an all-loving being. He's gracious. He's kind to mankind. If you were to try to count the grace and favor of God, you never would. These people are ingrateful. They had a lack of shukr in their heart, thankfulness to God. But even still, despite God's grace and his kindness to mankind, which they are discounting, God is not all loving. He also hates. He hates the evildoers. But even still, you hear these atheists, they'll say like, if the God is a just God, why did he allow so much suffering and pain in this world? Dude, God does what he wants. He made a world with a lot of goodness for you, which you're discounting. I'm not saying God just is causing us pain for no reason. No, there's a lot of goodness in the world, but there's a lot of pain as well, a lot of suffering in this world. Naturally, it's a part of the created order. And all I can say is, take it up with God. You got a problem with that? Go try to challenge God on that. It's not going to go well with you. That is the Quranic model. All this we are the victims of this Quranic God, this God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob that does what he wants. He's such a meanie. He's such a bad person, quote unquote. And this is utterly against the Quran. So going back to what I was originally saying about Satan. Remember Satan, when God asked Iblis, at least as he's identified in the Quran, to lower himself before Adam. Lower yourself before Adam. I made him better than you, of a higher status than you. All the angels, including Iblis as well, lower yourself before Adam. I'm not saying Iblis was necessarily an angel, but he knew the command applied to him. Everyone in the heavenly host, do sujood before Adam. And all did except for Iblis. Why did Iblis not do it? Because he was a victim of an unjust God, right? God, he did not accept God's sovereignty in that moment. He just said, oh God, you see, God, even though God declared, no, Adam is better than you. He's of a higher status than you. He's like, no, God, you see, I am better than him because you made me from fire and you've made him from clay. And you see the victimhood? I am a victim of an unjust God who told me to do something that's not right. He didn't make equality. He made me beneath him, and I don't like that. But he didn't acknowledge God's authority to do whatever he wants. God made Adam superior to the angels and to Iblis in status, and that is his right to do it. And you can't stop him. His might makes him right. And then to further double down on his victimhood, finally, after he lied and he deceived Adam and he did all these things, and his jealousy, his envy, that's another big part of it as well. You feel like this is a big part in life. Whenever somebody has something you don't, like I don't know, somebody's tall and big and you're not, 6'3", or they have lots of money, or they may have a wife and you don't, or whatever it is in life, you look into the court of somebody else and feel like a victim. It is unjust for me to be that way. Why? For me to be this way and for him to be that way. Why am I 5'6" and he's 6'3"? Why am I single and he has a wife? Why does he have all this money and I'm working a minimum wage job? Not being grateful for the things that God has given you. And this goes to Satan as well. Satan, he said, because you have sent me astray, I will lie in wait for them. Because he was envious of Adam, right? Because you have sent me astray, I will lie in wait for them, and I will deceive them, and I will come at them from their front, their back, and their left and their right, and you will find most of them not grateful. So you see, because you have sent me astray, God, I'm going to do all this stuff. The victimhood, the victimhood, the victimhood. And that is not the mentality of the Quran. The mentality of the Quran, the Quranic theology, is might is right. And most people have not yet understood this concept. Oh, how could God do this? How could God do that? How could God send evildoers in hell? And obviously, I'm not discounting God's grace. God is a kind God. He gives us so many things. Look at all the fruits and the beautiful sunlight that's out today and the delicious things. God has given us so much enjoyment and grace, but man doesn't count these things. But my point is, that is not what justifies God, the fact that he's kind, although he is to mankind. The thing that justifies God is his almighty nature and his power. If, let's say, for an example, God were to make us humans pure, now he didn't, he gave us much grace, but he made us purely for the purpose of suffering. And let's say God just and he didn't do this, just making that clear. So for all my detractors and haters who would misrepresent what I'm saying, let's say God made us for the purpose of suffering. Let's say he delighted in our pain and our suffering, and he made us just for toying with us in a sadistic way. Even still, God would be justified with that because his might makes him right. God, if he made me and everybody else in this world just to suffer for his enjoyment, what are we going to do to stop him? His might makes him right. But he hasn't. He's given us much enjoyment and grace and kindness and family and wives and children and fruits and jobs and foods and so many things that we love in our life. And because God is merciful and kind to us, that's why we show him thanks. Thank you, God, for giving me these things. You didn't have to. God, if you made me purely for suffering, there's nothing I could do about it, but thank you for giving me all this good stuff that I enjoy in my life. That is the Quranic model. Again, might is right. God, it makes no difference. God is justified no less if he made us for the purpose of torture, but he didn't. So we show him we show him thanks for the graces that he's bestowed upon us. And I see this victimhood mentality of just not acknowledging might is right. Now, might is right is bad in an atheist worldview because in the atheist worldview, they have no God. So basically, who's right? The government? They have all the weapons and the guns and the armies, so they do what they want to do. But in the Quranic godly worldview, finally we have, thank the Lord, we have a Lord who loves justice, who loves giving evildoers what they deserve, and he loves giving the good people rewards. Thank God that we have a God who is kind and merciful in that way. Might is right becomes very hopeful in a godly worldview. Whereas in the atheist worldview, they have no higher they have no higher gracious God to appeal to. So then we're just appealing to the government, which basically does they just take advantage of humanity because they want to eat off of us. But God doesn't need us. He's free from need. So, he just administers kindness to us because that's how he is. He doesn't need us, where the government needs people to serve them. But either way, that's a little bit of a side rant. My point is this victimhood mentality and not acknowledging that might is right, and that basically God does what he wants because he can beat everybody up and nobody can stop him. That's just a description of reality. This permeates everything. I'm a victim. Look at it everywhere. Oh, my dad left me, my mom left me, so now that's why I'm playing my video games and I'm coping out in life, and that's why I'm a sinner, that's why I'm smoking weed. Oh, I suffer from some kind of condition, I have a mental condition. Oh, I need all these medications and this and that and the other. Always justifying your sin through your victimhood. You see this in the black pill crowd as well. Because I'm 5'5" and maybe I don't have the most angular face, so that's why I'm playing video games. I was just made in a wrong way. I'm a victim of a cruel world. I got these crappy genes. Not being grateful for what God has given you, complaining about your circumstances, and using that to justify your sin. When I'm talking about victimhood, I'm talking, because there are real victims in life, no doubt. Prophets were killed by evil-doing men. Injustice happens. I'm not denying that. I'm saying that when you use your circumstances to justify your sin, that is the victimhood, which I am maligning in this video. So the reason I'm smoking weed and playing video games and doing nothing with my life is because my mom left me, because my dad left me. I don't even know. The reason why I am just ungrateful for the things that I have, it's because I'm 5'6", because I'm not tall. Satan, the perfect example. The reason why I'm going to lie in wait for them on the front and the back and the left and the right, I'm going to do the sin and deceive mankind, is because I'm a victim of you, God, because you set me astray. Now my sin is justified. Using your undesirable, unfavorable circumstances as a justification for your sin, that's what I'm talking about. So the Quranic mentality is there's no justification for sin, and might is right. God does what he wants, and we see this over and over. God says in the Quran, if he willed, he could completely wipe us away and eliminate us and replace us with an utterly new creation. And there's nothing we could do about that, because God can beat everybody up and nobody can touch him. It's that simple. But God doesn't. We should be thankful to God that God is kind. God is honest to his word. God keeps his promise. God is the best in keeping his promise, because that's in his nature. It's in his nature to keep his promise. But my point is, theoretically speaking, if God were to break all of his promises right now and just destroy us and bring in a new creation, he didn't fulfill his promise of, raising us alive and judging us and putting the good people in the garden and the bad people in the hellfire. There's nothing we could do about that. Might is right in the Quranic philosophy. And I want to get this victimhood mentality, this jealousy, envy, looking what another person has, justifying our own sin. We got to get that out. And you have to understand that God, when he decrees laws and commands, he decrees them not out of necessity, but as a sovereign. Not out of necessity, but as a sovereign. So what do I mean by that? I mean, when God passes a decree or a law or declares something as moral or immoral, he does it just because he wants to. Now, obviously God is wise. There's a reasoning behind why he does things. But then you have to ask, why is God reasoning that way? So let's say, God declared on the Sabbath that the children of Israel, they were not to work, and why did God do that on that specific day? Well, there's a reasoning and wisdom behind it. Okay, no problem. But why did God reason in that way? Because that's just what he wanted. That was his desire. And I want you for a second to go even deeper than the wisdom aspect of it. So God does what he wills. Yes. Okay. Then you can say there's a wisdom behind God doing whatever he wants. Okay. Yes. No problem. But then why does he have that plan in the first place? And ultimately you're just left with, he does what he wills. It's like, let's say I were to, I don't know, be in the kitchen and Let's say this, like, my wife, she really loves spicy food, and I don't like spicy food at all. That's we're pretty much the exact same and everything. That's just the one thing different. She eats so much spice, and me, I can handle spice, but I don't particularly like it. I like pretty bland food, just like salt and not even pepper on there. I just, mildly flavored food. That's just my kind of thing. And let's say I told my wife when she was cooking our meal, she wants a ton of spice. I don't want any spice in it. And I said to her, my dear, could you make my portion separate just so it doesn't touch yours, so not none of the peppers and spices in yours leak into my food? Okay, no problem. She ends up doing that. So there's a wisdom behind my plan of wanting her to separate my portion from her portion. The wisdom is I don't want the spice to leak over into my food. But then you have to ask yourself, why doesn't Waleed like spicy food? And it's just how I feel on the matter. It's just what I want to do. It's what I like to eat. I can't explain it. It's my nature to not like spicy food. And then same thing with my wife. Why does she like food that is so spicy to the point where it's literally burning my mouth? My eyes are watering when I take a bite out of her bowl. But she loves to eat that kind of stuff. She finds it very delicious. Same with my mom. She likes that kind of thing. Why? It's just how they're made. It's their nature. It's like, how should I put it? It's how she feels on the matter. It's the same thing with God. So God, he does things for a wisdom. There's a plan behind it. It's not random. There's a plan behind it. But then why is the plan in that way? Why is God planning for that specific outcome? Because a plan is an agenda to bring about a certain outcome. That's what we mean by plan. And that's what we mean by wise. God is wise. There's a plan behind what he does. A plan means a set of organized actions to bring about a certain agenda. Why do you have that agenda? That's just God's opinion on the matter, and we fall in line with it. And the truth is, all of us understand this concept deep down. Although we're not creators, we don't make things in the sense that God does out of divine fiat, but we form things. We form computers, we form tools. And what happens when a tool does not function in the way that we want it to? Do we feel bad? Do we feel upset? No, we toss it out and throw it in the garbage. Why? Because we didn't create it, but only God is a creator, but we formed it. I formed you. Let's say I have a chainsaw, and that chainsaw's purpose is to cut down wood and trees. And then one of the days it just like it doesn't work anymore. It's just a lemon. Then I toss it out. Nobody would have any moral qualms about that. I formed the chainsaw for a specific purpose. It did not fulfill the purpose that it had of of cutting down trees. It doesn't do its job, so I tossed it out and I replaced it with a new one, right? I formed it, so I decided what its purpose was. And nobody, again, has any issues with that. But why do we have an issue with God? God actually created us, so even more authority he has over us than we do over the chainsaw, which we formed, but we did not create. God created us from scratch, from divine fiat. He made us from a clot of clinging fluid, a clinging thing. And look at us, we're formed into full-grown men and women. God made us from scratch. And you cannot suffer that God made you for a specific purpose and you have to fulfill it. And if you don't, he does what he wants with you and he'll toss you out if you don't do it. What is the purpose that God made us for? God made me fundamentally to worship him, to be a worshiping and glorifying creation. That a free choice, glorifying creation. I can choose to glorify him and then I'll be saved. And if I don't choose to glorify him, then I will be thrown in the garbage and burned in hell forever. So I don't understand, why are we so averse to that concept of authority and he who formed, he who created, he who endowed the thing with its form in general, deciding its purpose and tossing it out if it doesn't fulfill that purpose. I don't know why we have a problem with God doing that when we do that all the time. When we make computers and tools and everything, we get these concepts. God passes laws as a sovereign, and he does. I don't see anywhere in the Quran where it says God does what he needs. God does what he needs. No, we as created beings do what we need. But God does what? What he wills. What he wills. That's over and over. However many times it appears in the Quran. God does what he wills. God is a doer of what he wills. God is a doer of what he wills. God acts as a sovereign, and most people are not willing to suffer the idea of God being a complete and perfect sovereign, doing whatever he wants. So, like, there's plenty of examples of this in the Quran. God passing laws as divine fiat just because he wishes to. And again, we have to follow it because, well, we're created beings and God can beat everybody up and nobody can challenge his authority. So one of these examples is Remember in the Quran where because of the children of Israel telling stories and making unlawful that which God did not make unlawful, lying about God, God took certain things that were lawful for them and made them unlawful. Remember that? Now, what is that other than a sovereign God making decrees in whatever ways he wills? He didn't like what the children of Israel were doing, and something was first halal at that point. It was okay for them, and God said, all right, now you're not going to do that anymore. I'm going to make that unlawful for you because I don't like what you're doing, so I'm going to shut you down on that. That is a sovereign passing his decrees. And then when God said, Isa ibn Maryam, Jesus, the son of Mary, to the children of Israel to make lawful for them what was made unlawful in the past as a punishment from God. Was that some higher, universal, eternal principle above God? No, he did that as he willed. He made it unlawful for a certain time, and then suddenly God decided, all right, time has passed. I want to make it lawful again. I'm going to send them a messenger who's going to convey this message to them that these things that were unlawful, haram before, they're halal now. It's okay. God gives and takes away decrees as he wills. Another example of this is, I gave you the Sabbath, and then even the concept of shirk. So, out of all the sins that one could do, making partners and associating partners with God, denying God's complete and perfect and ineffable sovereignty in every matter, ascribing powers and qualities and divinities to other things around you, worshiping those things and seeking those things for protection as your ultimate source of protection and guidance and knowledge. This is the most unforgivable sin in the Quran. Not, I don't want to use the word, doing, and these are bad sins, they're wicked, but it's not doing horrible things to children. It's not murdering a bunch of people. It's not doing unconsensual, inappropriate acts with people. Just think of the most disgusting and worst things that are sins according to the Quran. Think about them. Those are not the worst things in God's eyes. What is the worst possible things in God's eyes? Killing a bunch of babies? Abortion, although that stuff is wicked and I hate it. No, that's not the worst thing in God's eyes. What's the worst thing in God's eyes? Making partners with him, worshiping a statue. Imagine that. God forbid, but if a man were to come and brutally, there's a guy out there, I don't know if you ever heard of his story. His name is, I probably can't share this story on YouTube because they're going to shut me down because it's so horrifying. Satanic man. Just look into a guy named, Peter Scully. Go on BitChute and just type up Peter Scully. There's a 50-minute documentary about him explaining exactly what he did to children and how he made money off of them and the horrible things. And it's only for the people with a very strong stomach. Don't watch it if you're the faint of heart. What he would do to these kids, and then he would put their videos out on the dark web, and people all over the world, they would pay this money to watch these inappropriate videos. It was, to kids who were even under 3 years of age. Horrifying. And that's sin. And this man is going to burn in hell. He's going to have a horrible place in this life and even worse in the hereafter. But even that, what that man, Peter Scully, did is not as bad as ascribing a partnership to God. And he may have done that in his life. He probably did. I mean, he made his own vain desire his God pretty much. But that is the pinnacle in God's eyes, or maybe I should say the lowest in God's eyes. Making a partner with God. And this goes back into what I was saying about God's sovereignty. He passes laws not as universal principles, but as a sovereign, doing what he wills. There's nothing in our realm that would suggest to us that a man who is harmlessly worshiping a statue over there, worshiping a statue of Krishna, or worshiping the statue of Christ in the Catholic Church or whatever, harmlessly, but that man who, he gives charity and whatnot, but he worships those statues, that is worse in the eyes, because that's the worst sin in God's eyes, that is worse than what Peter Scully did. That specific sin is worse than what Peter Scully did to those kids. But according to the Quran, that's the one absolute sin where if you die like that, you will not be forgiven. God will utterly throw you into hell. It's making partners and insulting God by denying him the right and the divinity and the authority that he has. And you have to ask yourself, does it really have to be that way? Does God have to throw you in hell forever for harmlessly worshiping a statue? No, he could have made a much lesser punishment, a lighter punishment, but why did he do that? Yeah, you could say, all those things that Peter Scully did, that those are sins against the creation, but what's it called? Worshipping statues and making partners with God is a sin against the creator. But did he really have to throw you in hell for all eternity if you worship statues? Doesn't matter how good you are. Doesn't matter if you're like, at least what Mother Teresa represents of being a charitable, kind, good to people. You worship partners, you're going to hell. Did it have to be that way? No. Why is it that way? Why is God going to throw people in hell for harmlessly worshiping a statue? Because it's the way, that's how he feels on the matter. That's his will. He just really doesn't like it because God does what he wills. And again, there is no objecting to the justice of God, because if you have a problem with it, why don't you send up a rope and try to stop him from doing what he wants? You can't. So then you got to be quiet and obey. That's how it goes. Might is right is the natural order of the world. It is the order which the Quran operates off of. There is no virtue signaling in that. There is no complaining. There is no whining. There is no, I should say, pandering for the prospect of some ideal Platonic world where there's these universal principles and, God and everybody is subservient, including God, to these principles that never change. No, that's not how things work. Universal principles don't exist. God is a sovereign. He decrees as he wills. He takes away decrees as he wills. And that these are all just examples of God's supreme sovereignty. And all of this relates into the divine king doctrine. And who do you understand God as being? And what is your understanding of justice and Quranic law and divinity and purpose of mankind? I mean, another example is just my purpose. God didn't create me fundamentally for fun and for pleasure and for me to just be in this fun house called Earth and like this kind of mystic sort of, what's the word I'm looking for? Spiritual new age mentality, where a piece of God is within us to experience the world from a subjective perspective. This life is all about experience and fun and making spiritual contact with people. All this like self-service and self-worship. It's disgusting. I hate this stuff, but that's not the purpose why God made me. God, it's not about this is a big in like Neoplatonic, mystic, Kabbalah, Sufism, all these mystical traditions that are everywhere, which are completely against the Quran. Their understanding of a non-physical God who's just this magical ether entity or whatever. Their idea that life is about like achieving gnosis, achieving this knowledge of divine and higher realms and ascending up this chain of being and lining my chakras and getting like serving my own self and my ego and my enlightenment and how smart I think I am. That's not why God created us. God made us for one thing. Was it for my enlightenment, for my knowledge? No. He made me to worship him in sincerity and truth and with the fullness of my heart and my spirit and my faith, and to do good according to his law. That is my purpose. Now, you can virtue signal and say, oh, that's a really selfish purpose. Why did God make us to worship him? This is a common atheist objection. God made us so that we could be on our knees for our entire life worshiping him. What kind of a God is that? He has this ego. He has this big idea of himself. Try and stop him. He has this high idea of himself because he literally is the Most High. Why is it they're trying to apply their human categories to God? I am a created being who is vulnerable. I should not have this big hot ego and think I'm the big shot and expect all this exalting and praise, because I'm not the biggest caller around here. God is the biggest shot caller around here. But God, who is the biggest shot caller, there's nobody out there to hold him accountable to anything. He can truly exalt. He can demand that praise and worship. I can't, because God's going to destroy me. He can, because nobody's going to challenge him. This is the nature of the Quranic understanding of justice. I am a being not made for fun, not made for experiences, not made for achieving enlightenment and liberation and knowledge, all this victimhood nonsense, like liberating myself from this meanie, bad world. No, I am made fundamentally for service and for worship and to do good deeds in the name of my Lord. What is a good person according to the Quran? A good person is not somebody who virtue signals, not somebody who doesn't hurt people's feelings. A good person is one who remembers their Lord alone, constantly every day and every night and lives according to his word. That is what a good person is. Somebody who remembers their Lord, constantly giving him glory and praise. But yeah, I don't know where I'm going with this one. I'm just really speaking out the top of the dome. I feel very strongly about this. All this stuff is related, guys, of theology and how we view God and how we view justice, our understanding of the Creator, our understanding of the world and humanity. All this stuff goes together. It's all related in this big out. And this is a long rant, man. I could go on for hours about this, dude. Like, even I believe this kind of Neoplatonic mystic idea of God. You see, God is not a king with a throne who is above the earth, who does what he wants, who has a will, who has emotions, who has a personality and does whatever he wills. That's not what he is. God is more like a universal principle of right and wrong. And he's just like this energy, this ether. God is nature. And they feel like my conception of God, which is the Quranic conception, I call it the divine king doctrine, seeing God as a physical, concrete being, that this is some victimhood, that this would be unjust or unfair, being under this tyrant or whatever that they say. I believe that this kind of theology, this understanding of the world, this victimhood, this lack of ability to accept authority, justified authority, like a God who does whatever he wants, whenever he wants. This may come from deep-rooted psychological problems in our lives with us having weak fathers. I think because our dads were not around, teaching us what is right and wrong, checking us and putting us in place, keeping us straight, just humbling us in the way we should have been, beating our asses, or I should say whooping our butts when it was deserved to be whooped. Because we didn't have fathers like that, most of our fathers were just... I know mine was just watching TV and wasting their time and didn't really care about imparting godly wisdom to the kids and being strict with us. I think that's the real reason, because we didn't have any dealings with real authority in our life in a meaningful way. So now we can't deal with the ultimate authority, the might is right authority, that is God. I think that's part of it. But again, we're not victims of that as well. I think that leads into certain psychological problems, but ultimately we're responsible for ourselves, and we can't blame our parents for this kind of thing. This is a long, long subject, guys, long rant that I could go on, like I said. And, I want you guys to be able to deal with reality. I see this kind of pandering to people's feelings and their victimhood. I see it everywhere. I see it in the schools as well. They'll tell these kids, like I see it all over the walls of the schools. They'll have these posters, call this hotline to talk about your feelings, and oh, your identity matters, and you call yourself you're identifying as a war helicopter, you're identifying as a sesame seed, and that's totally valid, and your feelings are okay, and this and that, and people should acknowledge your feelings, and they shouldn't hurt your feelings. And dude, all over the schools. I'm seeing it all over inside of the walls of these schools, posters, inside the classrooms, in the hallways. This stuff is meant to destroy your life, because they know if you believe your feelings are the most important thing and you're all in your victimhood, I'm a victim of this unjust society. You see, racial segregation and what is the term that they use? Silent racism. And I shouldn't be thankful and grateful for what God has given me and try to work within the system that I have, but rather, oh, the reason I'm down is because of my race and because of this hidden racism, because I'm brown or whatever. They feed into your victimhood and your pathology and your desire to have excuses for your shortcomings. And they feed it to it so much in these schools, and I know exactly what the satanic government is doing with this. They're trying to destroy your life because they know if you're stuck in your feelings and you're constantly justifying your sin through your own victimhood, you will never amount to anything in life, and you will be utterly subservient to their system. You will be like a dog underneath their feet. That's why they put all this stuff in the schools. Your feelings are important, this and that. Your identity, you matter, this and that and the other, all this stuff. Guidance counselors, therapists in the school, psychologists in the school, social workers in the schools, all to talk to you about your feelings. They're trying to set you up for failure in life. But God and the Quran and me as a conveyor of the Quranic message, I'm telling you that none of that stuff matters. Nobody cares. All that matters is your output, what you do in life, your circumstances around you, and whatever you can do within it. That is it. And Results are all that counts, and the only thing that matters is what you can do. And since God can do the most, God is almighty, he is all right. And don't ever let this stuff get to your head, man. I'm trying to tell you things that will save you ultimately in the end. Let's start to engage with reality as men. We know there's a God who created the heavens and the earth, and obviously I can see evidence of him everywhere, the beauty and the majesty that is in creation. And let's be real, we can't do anything to challenge him. He's the Almighty, we're not. So let's just submit ourselves to his will and accept that he does what he wants. And this even goes into God commanding Abraham, sacrifice your child. And then eventually God intervened. He stopped him from doing that, from killing his child. But God had the right to do that. And God could have let Abraham kill him. And you see, Abraham didn't say, oh God, you see, I'm this victim. How dare you do this to me? I don't like this. And, morally upbraiding God. No. Abraham understood that God's might makes him right. God is the creator of the heavens and the earth. He does what he wants. Right now, he wants me to sacrifice my son. I'm going to do that. And his son, a complete hero, an amazing man as well, an amazing young man, said, you know what? You will find me patient. I know it's going to be hard watching my father kill me, but if that's what God wants, I'm going to go through it. That's the kind of dedication I want. That's the kind of morality and ethical system we see in the Quran. Might is right. And then eventually, of course, God in his grace, he saved the son. Angel came and said, don't do this anymore. This was just a test for you. But yeah, I hope this rant was worth something for you guys. I felt very strongly about this, and I wanted to share this with you. No victimhood. Might is right. God does what he wants. No universal principles. God doesn't operate on the same rules that we do, the same rule sets. Just because we have rules that we have to operate on because God is over top of us, God doesn't have any rules he has to operate off of. But he does so. He's kind and honest out of his nature. I want you guys to accept the real matrix, the real way that your world works. And like I said, I hope that this talk was a blessing. But yeah, peace be upon you guys, and God bless, and I hope everything's well.